Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is, how do I get closure and move on after I've been in this relationship with this person who has done me wrong, and I have all of their flying monkeys still around me in my life? This is a great viewer question because it really calls to task the mindset that is required for you to really come to terms and move through a relationship that has been toxic, that has gone over the edge, that has taken you, it's gotten too deep. You've lost perspective. You perhaps have been the target or victim of manipulation, pathological lying, things and traits that we see with people who are narcissistic or psychopathic. And really, to get closure means, in my mind, which is to come to peace, to come to resolve, to be okay with it, to say, okay, let's drop the clenched fists, let's drop the punching bag, let's cease fighting and come to terms and get resolution. Let's settle this. That is closure. Almost like the way that a wound might have closure on the skin. And so it's kind of like an emotional congealing or coming together. So to really have that state, to seek it, in my viewpoint, if you're seeking it in an individual who is narcissistic or psychopathic, by virtue of these people's personality disorders, they lack empathy and they lack really that compassion, that ability to sort of, empty themselves out of their own concern and be there for another and to walk in their shoes, to understand their feelings, to consider their viewpoint, to kind of look at things from a metacognitive place, which means the ability to sort of think about what you're thinking, which is a great ability we have as human beings, which is called metacognition. It's the ability to think about what you're thinking and then correct it, almost midstream or mid-emotion, to sort of get that mastery and that control. If you are seeking closure and resolve with an individual who is malignant narcissistic, who has lied to you in a pathological sense, they've had a pathological sense of self-importance in this sort of entitlement aspect that they kind of feel because they can, because of who they are, of some self-proclaimed grandiosity or what we call entitlement, which means that they just sort of give themselves permission to run amok in other people's lives, to be disruptive, to put them on edge, to know what puts people on edge or makes them uncomfortable, but to do it anyway, to do it in spite of. In other words, that's how they get the upper hand, is through this entitlement behavior, oftentimes exploiting others or putting others in very uncomfortable or unsavory positions, which are not only not in their best interest, but are causative in terms of reaction, to cause a reaction. So for a narcissist who has this pathological sense of self-importance, this entitlement mindset, which is part of their personality disorder, which then gives them this sort of propensity or situation that continues on and on to just put others in an uncomfortable or unfavorable situation so that they are reactive. It is by virtue of that relationship dynamic is to disempower others. It's to put others in the back seat while they remain in the driver's seat. It's to put others on the back burner while they remain on the front burner. It's a way for them to have immediate priority and importance above everything else. And then they cause reactivity in others. So it's an easy way for somebody to get power, superiority, or narcissistic control over their supply or over the relationship or the situation. So if you can immediately make people uncomfortable, not have empathy for them, and act out of entitlement, by virtue of this, you're putting them at odds. You're giving them the short end of the stick. You're giving them the situation where they have to be reactive. But that's not a necessity until you sort of sharpen your tools in your awareness, in your education on people and behaviors, and know that it's to understand that they will engage in and indulge in this dynamic where they create this reactivity of others. So they have, immediate control, immediate importance, immediate superiority over others. It's all of a sudden, they're the one who has to be contended with. They're the force that has to be reckoned with. So they will destroy a lot of good hearts, a lot of good intention, a lot of good characters by causing this reactivity. In their mindset, they have done nothing wrong. So it's just this is just what they do. To make it your mission, to try to, correct them, teach them the error of their ways, to pick them up, to dust them off, to polish them off, and to say, to try to re-educate them to how to interact with others, oftentimes is what I would call an exercise in futility. You will only be setting yourself up for disappointment, which is a reoccurring cycle with those people who have been victimized time and time again for years, months, decades, and then, eventually say, I get it with this person, or I get it with these types. So to understand that these individuals oftentimes are resistant to change. They are not ones to change or to be coachable, to listen, to say, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Let me try that. There's not this meekness or humbleness of spirit. There's not this authenticity or genuineness or sort of coming down to a quality self-esteem. These individuals oftentimes are very insecure. And yet, so this big ego or this presentation of what we call their public persona, or the person, the ego that you see sort of doing this entitlement behavior, is what they do time and time again to get this importance or significance. People have a need for significance or importance. It's one of the really basic human needs. The narcissist goes about it the wrong way. Like it's been said time and time again, if an individual can dim the lights of others, all of a sudden their light shines brighter. So if they can dim others, if they can make others reactive, if they can muddy the waters, make people upset, get people agitated, be disruptive, they're not feeling bad. They lack empathy. And because of their pathological sense of self-importance, they're just going to go on and do it anyway, no matter how many people have to pay the price, no matter how many people are hurt. This is just what they do. This is who they are. So try to, oftentimes when people factor in closure or having peace, amicably, shaking hands and, I'm sorry and I really apologize and, sort of fess up, you're not going to get it from this individual unless they want more supply. If you are sort of teetering on moving forward, if you're basing sort of this closure on this agreement or this coming together or this therapeutic conversation with you and this individual, you're not going to get it. In fact, you're going to trigger narcissistic rage. Narcissistic rage. You do not want this in your face. You don't want to trigger them. It doesn't give you power. It's not going to make you feel better. This person, oftentimes the narcissists do not like to be challenged. They don't feel that they need to change, because of this entitlement factor. And when you get into people who are psychopathic, they truly, because of their brain wiring and the reduced activity in their prefrontal lobes, they oftentimes don't really have the mental processor. If you think of it like a computer, they don't have the gigabytes to process your coding or your data. They cannot process emotions. If you were to be as a computer programmer and try to program them for emotions and empathy, they just can't have that add-on. They don't have that memory booster. They don't have that flash drive. They don't have the thumb drive. They don't have the, whatever you call it, the gigabytes. They don't have the processor speed. It can't grow. You can't add on. You can't build on. You can't do a network connection for all you people who are into, software. They don't have the basic foundation. And you can't build onto their foundation with a narcissist or a psychopath. To do so would be like to, try to get, do an add-on on a house that's, in California on the edge of the Beverly Hills, and you're trying to build out over the rock. I mean, you can try to put, 20-foot 2x4s out and try to, build, whatever, but it's going to be very unsafe. In fact, it's probably going to make a lot of people not want to go there because it's unnatural. It would not be comfortable. That is, I use a lot of analogies to share with you, especially in the psychopath, their prefrontal lobe in the sort of the newest area of the brain where people, have, centers of learning and moral processing, moral control, societal norms, the ability to learn, adapt and adjust, and then reevaluate their future. It just ain't going on there. It just, no matter how hard you explain, try, justify, lay out the facts, lay out the logic, compare notes, try to get them to understand, is an exercise of futility because they don't process information, relationships this way. They just don't. And despite their, despite their need or your perception of their need to be able to do this is to really cause you to really, I would say, stop and really, despite your own satisfaction, say, okay, pull back and have, compassion for yourself, mercy and understanding, and say, you know what, I've been through so much here with this person, and, so much is sort of on this person with me. So they're like the only person who can help me to feel better, or this sort of justification, which is not correct. If you really do some work and have some therapeutic conversations or join the community here, you'll be able to kind of get that successfully, because you'll learn that these people will take advantage time and time again. They don't learn. They don't see things from your perspective. They don't feel that they should come down to that level. In the psychopath, they literally don't have the ability. If you've ever had a fight with them, if you look at someone, we're kind of swinging back and forth between these personality, which are very distinct and separate. But I really feel that those people who have been suffered victimization by them suffer a similar wound. So we're kind of filling that gap and that void here. It is to understand that someone who is psychopathic, if you've ever had a fight or a spat, or really for them, all they really feel is sort of this sort of, persona front, or then you get into psychopathic rage where they're just super impulsive and they'll resort to all sorts of ugliness. But if you've ever had sort of an all-out fight, you this, where were you then, me that, you've had one of these, what I'm saying, discussions, come to Jesus talks, and, unsavory things have occurred. It's gotten downright ugly, and, you're expecting the next day to kind of, you're kind of shy, you don't know if they're going to talk to you, they'll be just kind of skipping around and just, acting as if nothing happened. In their mind, they don't retain sort of that emotional language, so they don't kind of string it together. Like, we just had this fight, so maybe we should be easy on them and see how they're doing today, and is everything okay? How are we going to navigate this? They're just like, they're ready to just carry on. In fact, they're still back to their same thing, getting getting what they want. It's just all about sort of satisfying that boredom. And it really, really comes down to oftentimes nothing more than that, which in their mind is personality growth or development for them. And so the closure really, really needs to come, and I know people don't want to hear this, or they're flying monkeys. The change has to come from within, and it has to be so complete that even when, quote unquote, like your question, these flying monkeys come around, you are not affected. You're not reactive. You're not triggered. You're not set up to launch into a tirade. You're not going there. You've got some brakes to the car now. You've got some emotional brakes. You automatically, screech to a stop. In fact, you don't even jolt. You don't even need to put on the parking brake. Having true, what was the word that you used? The root word is eluding me right now, even though we've used it so many times. To have true closure is really to have that and arrive at that within. You will be your own best advocate here, especially and on the channel and community, to understand that you are the go-to person for closure. The closure of that resolution needs to complete its life cycle within you. But peace and harmony, this is so unimaginably difficult. This is almost impossible. I cannot believe that this happened. I was married to this person. Whatever your situation, it seems out of your reach. Well, understand, yes, that is the initial stage when you're kind of first learning and you're still in that desire to have things kind of come together and get what you're, quote unquote, typically needing from a relationship resolved. These relationships are unlike your typical usual relationships where you're within people and you kind of have that mutual, it wasn't good here, let's sort it out. You live here, my family this, my religion that, your work schedule there. There's usually some of coming together. A sense of logic permeates the discourse. There's some common, agreement, and it's sort of amicable. You might have some hard feelings, but time kind of can heal these. You have closure. You have to do the discussion between you, your heart, and God, divine intelligence, the universe at large. The universe is infinite, okay? So give it some credit. Give yourself some credit. If you are seeking to have closure in a discussion with this person, you're giving them more credit than credit is due, and you're giving them an ability to their character which they do not have. You're holding them accountable for things that they don't ever feel accountable for. They are truly irresponsible, immature when it comes to matters of the heart or relationships. They, once again, with the narcissist, they will resort to pathological lying, the flying monkey situations where they've got all sorts of people in their court, in their corner. They've got their posse going. They've got their, people who just are on my tribe, on my side, on my team, drinking the Kool-Aid. Whatever it is that you want to use to describe this, they're under their influence, they're under their spell, they're under their superiority or title as you are the leader in the band, you're the leader of the workplace, you're the leader of whatever, they're banking on that title in a family or their position. And if you try to jockey up and get closure with them and say, hey, we're equals here. My needs are important. My voice is important. To the narcissist, they're like, your voice is to be dimmed. Once again, like Donald Trump would always say, in New York, how do you get the biggest building? How do you get acclaim? You just build the biggest building in the shortest apartment neighborhood. All of a sudden, you dwarf everybody else. So, this is a tactic that a narcissist will use. How do you get that acclaim? You build the bigger building. You dwarf everybody else. You put them on building zoning limits so they can't build any higher. You begin to set it up so these people cannot challenge you. There's too much to lose. You'd have to go to the Board of New York and get a new building permit or whatever. They'll put you through, the ringer to try to, get to that spot. And once again, if you think it's only going to exhaust you, you're then giving them the power to make you feel better, which I would not recommend putting that credit onto a narcissist or a psychopath. You're giving them too much credit. You need to give yourself more credit, in my viewpoint, when it comes to this, so that you have that healing and closure within. You understand the inner workings of these individuals. You understand their tactics. You understand what manipulation is. And as you do then understand what manipulation is and their tactics are, you will become completely 100% immune to these tactics. You won't fall for it. You won't bite the carrot. You won't jump at the bait. You won't be triggered. You won't have that flinch and flail and feel like you're just going to be, tipped, reach your tipping point and then fall in for their escapades. It has no bearing on you. True closure comes when you are not affected. You are strong enough, wise enough, you've done enough processing, you've become educated enough about people, narcissists, psychopaths, which unfortunately, if you've been through these relationships for enough period of time, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to become educated about these types. The divine intelligence brought these people into your life for a reason. And the reason is the bigger picture and what you have to gain and learn and grow from in spite of it all. It will make you a better person. It will put you in, directly in alignment with your life purpose, your true heart, your true spirit, and the divine and the universe at large. It'll basically, and you can kind of be, one who has a little bit say of how much time you go from, being drowning out in emotions and needing them for closure to being thrown up, by a tsunami onto the island and like being thrown off on your stomach and being like, oh my God, where am I? I've landed on safe ground. That's kind of like and I apologize, I use a lot of analogies so I can help you to understand what okay and what healing feels like. Because a lot of people are so terrorized, they're so psychologically hijacked and so surrounded by this manipulation that they cannot think their own thoughts. They literally are that overwhelmed. And for people who have not been through this, they might, some people who are people of empathy might have empathy. They might, be able to learn, really, it was that bad, and they can be like, oh my God, like, I can't believe you went through all that. I can't believe you survived all that. I would have given up long ago. I would have quit at week 2. I mean, people who have empathy, they can understand and relate and feel what you're feeling. So, but I use these analogies to share with you, it is okay to land on safe ground. It's okay to give yourself closure. It's okay to give yourself distance. And that means not only from them, but their whole circuit of flying monkeys and the others who have drank the Kool-Aid, who are on the narcissist hit parade, who are on the psychopath jamboree. No matter how loud, bam, 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 they're cymbals and it looks like they're having all this fun, or they're doing this or doing that. You as you heal and understand that this is what they do, it's the show to make jealousy, to gain significance, that you will not become subjected to that. You'll know better. You will KNOW know better. That this is what they do, and you won't fall for their tactics. You won't fall for their little triggering statements. You won't fall for their texts, their emails. You'll set the record straight. You'll go no contact. You'll sorry, Charlie, no, not here. Here's a pink slip. Here's a quarter. Call somebody who cares. You don't feel bad giving them the pink slip. You don't feel bad saying, I can't tolerate that. You don't feel bad putting your foot down and saying no. You don't feel bad drawing the line. You realize that it's just to trigger and get you in a disempowered situation. And it's to say, that won't work here. That discussion, how you're talking to me, that won't work here. This won't fly. However you want to explain it, you need to be able to put your foot down. And you need to put your foot down within yourself. You need to have that discussion. I care about myself enough, and I have a future enough that I can gauge my future, and I'm going to close it right now for myself. I'm going to, have a clean break. It's an internal dialogue that needs to be arrived at, so that even though they're doing A, B, and C, you're not tyrannized. You're not put into that reactive situation. It does not affect you. It does not bother you. You see it for what it is. And if you watch these videos, you will arrive there. It's your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here.